He is a man known to many as the King. He is Gordon Ryan, and he's kind enough to join us right now via the magic of Zoom. There he is. Hello, Gordon. How are you? Nice to meet you.
What's up? Nice to meet you. How's everything?
Everything's great. Are you, it looks like you're at a gym right now, at a jiu-jitsu gym right now. Is that a map behind you?
Yeah, I'm filming in Boston. I have another instructional to do, so I'm filming a leg lock instructional right now. So I just took a break to do this.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And by the way,
Of course.
props on the look. I like the look very much. I don't know what inspired this look, because at first it started off as blonde. Now it's like a little bit silverish. Why did you do this? The beard as well.
Yeah, so in 2017, I just did it blonde to kind of troll Dillon because thought he looked terrible. So I did the blonde just to mess with him. And then I did white for 2017 ADCC. So you're like a gray for 2017 ADCC, and people kind of liked it, and I kind of liked it. It kind of stuck out more than my like regular like dirty blonde brown hair. And then I just kept running with the gray. And then for this one, I wanted to bring it back, and I was debating for a while doing my beard. I was like, I don't know if the beard's going to look that good. So I started doing the hair white, and that kind of stuck out a lot. And then the beard, I was like, let me do the beard and see how it goes. And if anything, I'll just shave it off and grow it back before ADCC. But the white beard with the white hair pops out a lot, and
Yes.
gets people talking, and it stands out. So now it's funny. After ADCC, I shaved it, and like no one knew who I was. Like shaved everything off, and I was like incognito for the longest time. I was like in a frame shop, and a guy came in and he saw a bunch of pictures of like fan art, and he's like, "Man, is that Gordon Ryan?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh man, I don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, but like my brother-in-law does that, and he's always sending me stuff about Gordon." And he's like telling me about like Gordon Ryan, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's just me with like white hair and a beard." He's like, "Oh my god, that's you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me. I had like my glasses and a hat on and no beard." And he didn't know who I was for like 5 minutes, and then he finally figured it out.
So you're sticking with this now.
This is for a little while, yeah, at least. It's such a pain in the ass to dye this beard because like the bleach fumes are going up my nose and in my eyes. But beauty isn't comfortable, but it pays sometimes. So it definitely sticks out.
And it's working for you. You won ADCC, you won this past week, so things are going well, as per usual. This UFC Fight Pass Invitational, I don't know, event, if you will. I think it's the third one that they've done. How do, as someone who's competed all over the world, every major competition, how would you rate it? Like how buttoned up were they? How big did it feel? And you were victorious once again, but like what did you think of the whole thing, the whole operation?
The operation was super smooth, very professional. Everyone has a specific job. The UFC's been operating for a long time, so everything was like clockwork. It was like the easiest event ever. I came in and you're supposed to do this at 2:15. Boom, 2:15, you're in. 2:30, you're out. 2:45, you're here. 3 o'clock, you're out. It was like the easiest thing I've ever had to deal with as far as operation and just communicating with the organization. I think that there's definitely some things because there's still very young as far as like grappling events. I think it's only the third Fight Pass Invitational. I think there's definitely some tweaks that they can do. I think to make the tournament and the rule set and that stuff a little bit better as far as like the actual competition. But the production was amazing. It felt like a real professional event, and it was just it was a great experience to be part of all around.
Is this like a one-off for you with them, or did you sign a multiple match deal with them?
No, it's just a one-off. Everyone's trying to get me exclusive now. I think I think the model now is I think one is trying to make athletes exclusive. I think Fight Pass and Flow I think are trying to get some guys exclusive. But I'm not unless someone wants to pay me an absorbent amount of money. I'm going to be non-exclusive for a while. So this is just like a one-off, and now I have to talk to them as far as what they want to do next. I'm supposed to fight Mason Fowler, who's the winner of the tournament. He won the tournament, and the winner of the tournament is supposed to compete against me sometime next year. So I have to compete against him and negotiate and talk to them about what they want to do next.
Do you think that obviously with the UFC's marketing and as you said, they've been around, they know what they're doing. Could this take jiu-jitsu to the next level, or am I it's a fight pass? They're not putting it on TV, so jiu-jitsu is supremely popular. You're supremely popular. UFC involved or not, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Like, how do you feel? Like, is this the thing that everyone's been waiting for, or for you, is this just another event?
I think so. I think that ADCC was the first big step, and I think that potentially UFC putting marketing money and empower into jiu-jitsu, I think is potentially the second big step. I think that if over the next 5 years, the UFC really heavily invests in jiu-jitsu, and they see that the popularity is growing, it's exploding as a sport, it's starting to become mainstream. I think ADCC had like 13,000 people in seats for like 2 days straight for like 16 hours a day, and that's very impressive. Even for like a large scale event like the UFC fills out stadiums and arenas and like at Madison Square. But those people are there for 4 hours. Like ADCC fans were there for like 2 days straight, like 16 hours a day. So I definitely think there's potential, and I definitely think that with the UFC behind, marketing jiu-jitsu and promoting jiu-jitsu, start seeing jiu-jitsu athletes posted on like the UFC Instagram. I think is a big step. I think it's just good for everyone. I think it's potentially a big step depending on how serious the UFC wants to take it.
Do you think we'll ever see jiu-jitsu in the Olympics?
It's hard about jiu-jitsu in the Olympics because there's not one main governing body and there's not one rule set. Like we're never going to agree on a rule set. There's 5 different rule sets. You have submission only with a time. You have no time limit sub only. You have EBI. You have IBJJF, and you have ADCC rules. And then me or you can open a tournament tomorrow and make whatever rule set we want. Like there's no one main, like there's not one rule set. So the first thing we have to do is agree on a rule set, and then we can kind of go from there. But until that happens, it's going to be almost impossible.
Which is your favorite?
I like no time limit matches, just because there's no way that a biased referee or judges can interfere with the decision. It's just the winner of the match is solely determined by the technique of the athlete. And same thing with EBI rules. Like there's no way that a ref can. I mean, the ref can mess up the call and finish their time early or let it go too late, whatever the case is. But EBI, no time limit, is my favorite because the athlete is only, or the outcome is only determined by the athlete. Whereas like with IBJJF or ADCC, it can go to a ref's decision, and then you have 1 or 2 biased referees or judges or whatever the case is, and they can kind of screw you, and they can screw you with calls and points and things like that. But with submission only, it's hard. It comes down to the athlete mostly. So I like anything determined by the athlete only, and not a third party referee or judges table.
And you don't think for the greater good of the sport, like everyone could come together, the major players, and say, okay, we're going to agree that this is the main one, and we're going to try to get this into the Olympics to grow the sport, to get more people involved, to get more, or is this just like a kumbaya thing? It will never happen.
Well, I think everyone pretty much agrees ADCC is the main rule set. I mean, ADCC is like our Olympics. It's the most prestigious rule set we have. So I think that an ADCC rule set going forward into the Olympics would probably be a pretty good one. It's pretty spectator friendly. I think that maybe a couple of tweaks to make it more spectator friendly, or giving people a uniform that they have to wear, so everything is kind of like the UFC, like everyone has like the same uniform, or the NFL, whatever the case is. But I think that ADCC is the agreed upon rule set for what's most prestigious, at least. So I mean, we could run with that, but I don't think that anyone's going to agree on what the most prestigious, on what the rule set should be. I think that if someone's going to bring it to the Olympics, I think it's going to be whichever group of people is going to present it to the Olympics, will probably be the group of people that ends up determining what the rule set is. I don't think it's going to be like everyone in the sport comes together and we have a poll. I think it's going to be like if the IBJJF goes to the Olympics and then they talk to the Olympics, I think it'll be IBJJF rules. I think if a group of ADCC activists goes to the Olympics and then it goes to the Olympics, it'll be ADCC rules. I'm whatever rule set, I've won in all the rule sets, so I'm happy to compete in whatever rule set they would decide if it went to the Olympics. But I definitely think an ADCC rule set is a pretty good rule set for the Olympics, and it's fan friendly. Like no time limit matches are not fan friendly, and you definitely can't have a 3-hour match in the Olympics. Like It doesn't make sense. But ADCC rules you could definitely do for sure.
So you were supposed to compete against Vinny Magalhães, former UFC fighter. You have a history with him. Last guy to defeat you back in 2018. He withdrew. How did you feel about that? And did you consider withdrawing as well when he withdrew?
Yeah, I was upset when he pulled out. They actually wanted to make him do a weight cut. I was against the weight cut. I think Vinny was like 275 or something.
Wow.
At ADCC, and they wanted him to make 235. And I'm like, guys, like I fight way bigger guys all the time. It's not MMA. Just have him come in whatever weight and I'll fight him. And they're like, no, we want him in shape. We want him to do the weight cut. and I think he tried to cut 26 pounds the day before, and his kidneys shut down. And he ended up in the hospital. So they called me like the day before, and I was like, okay, that sucks, but the show must go on, so we'll find a new opponent. So they started asking guys. And the first guy they asked was Nicky Rod, and Nicky Rod agreed. So Vinny was out, unfortunately, and I wanted to get that win back because he is the last guy to beat me. But the match will happen eventually. Like, we'll compete eventually, and I think I can get that one back. But I was a little bit bummed, but at the same time, I was like, it is what it is.
And for you, health-wise, I know you've talked about you had these stomach issues that were, that actually precluded you from competing a bit. COVID did as well. But what exactly was going on with your stomach? And I saw recently you posted something like, you were eating a sandwich, a sub or something, like first time eating it without the stomach issues. So what were you dealing with, and where would you say you're at now in terms of your health?
Yeah, so I had recurring staph infections in 2018, and I was taking oral antibiotics all the time, and it just completely destroyed my stomach. And nobody could figure out what was wrong with me for like 4 years. So just getting worse and worse for like over those 4 years. Eventually, I had to retire because I couldn't like even hold a conversation anymore. I was so nauseous.
Wow.
And then I finally found a doctor who figured out what was wrong with me. I had H. pylori. I had a bacterial imbalance in my stomach. I had a huge, massive fungal overgrowth in my small intestine, and I had mold poisoning from somewhere. So I had 4 different things. I had to treat them all individually. And now I'm about 75%. But this last, ever since right before ADCC, I've been dealing with like pretty severe acid reflux that just developed out of nowhere, which is killing me right now. So it's like a struggle to talk because I have like acid in my throat right now. Other than that, I mean, the nausea is like probably 75% better. I just did a test, stomach test with my doctor. I retested, and all my levels came down from like way up in the red into now they're only in the yellow. So I remember like the one of the, I forget what it was. I think it was myotoxins from mold. Like 0 to 5 was normal, and then 5 to 10 was like moderately high, and then I think like over 10 was high, and mine was like 555.
What?
Like I was like 50 times what I was supposed to be, or like 100 times what I was supposed to be, and I was like way up into the red. But now everything came down and it's in the yellow. So I'm probably with the nausea like 75% better. I can eat meals. I can hold conversations. So now it's just I have another doctor's appointment on Wednesday to figure out what I'm going to do with this acid reflux. I started taking like a new antifungal, an oral antifungal, and he seems to think that it's like a dying off effect of the fungus that's causing the acid. So I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm just hoping that I can get the acid under control, for this next camp that I have to do.
When you had to retire because of all this, and by the way, are you struggling right now? Do you want to take a break or something?
No, I'm okay. I'll let you know. But right. I'm definitely not perfect, but I'm okay for now. We're okay.
Okay, all right, cool. And I won't keep you much longer, but I'm just wondering, like, when you retired and you're at, you're so young. I think you're 27. By the way, we share the same birthday, July 8th. So great stuff.
Oh, nice.
You're 27, right? So.
Yeah, 27.
You were still such a young guy when you retired 4 years ago. How tough was that for you to have to give up what was looking like such a promising career at such a young age?
Oh man, it was the worst. So I didn't retire 4 years ago. I retired in 2021.
Oh wow.
So it was like yeah. So I just came back to competition right before ADCC. I was actually not going to compete until I was like 100% better. But I had ADCC. I had this super fight. It was the biggest ADCC ever, and I'm like, man, just fucking. Like, I got to do it. It's actually funny because COVID actually saved this ADCC. If ADCC was in 2021 like it was supposed to be, there's no way I would have been able to compete. That's like 3 months after I retired, or took a leave of absence, I called it, because I was so sick. And yeah, so I was sick since 2018, and then the fungal infection and the bacterial imbalance just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and no one could figure out what it was. And then I was like, okay, well, I went to 6 or 7 of the best stomach doctors in the country, and no one could figure it out. Maybe it's just going to get better eventually. Hopefully, it gets better. And so I was like, if no one can figure it out, I'm just going to deal with it until it gets better, or I can't deal with it anymore. And then we were living in Puerto Rico, and it was like I couldn't even hold the conversation. Like I went on Joe Rogan, like the first time, like Joe Rogan experience, and like I just met Joe at the time, and I was like, man, I can't tell Joe Rogan that I can't do this podcast right now because I'm so nauseous and I can't talk. but I'm just like the whole time I'm just like, hold it together, hold it together, hold it together. And I have like no recollection of what we even talked about because I was so nauseous the
Wow.
whole time. I was just like, come on, just get through it, man. And then so eventually, not only could I like not train the right way or compete the right way, like I couldn't even hold the conversation. Like I couldn't even talk. I just like couldn't live life at all. And I was like, man, I can't do this. And like when you're an athlete and you're in a camp, like you're not going to take the time to travel to California, to travel to all these different places, to go to a stomach doctor and miss a week of your camp. Like you're just focused on the camp. So I was like, finally, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. Like I'm only going to focus on getting better. I got to find a doctor who can help me. And then I went to this doctor in Los Angeles, Dr. Rabar from LA Integrative Gastroenterology. And he ran a bunch of tests that no one has ran on me before. And everything was like way out of whack. And I told him what my symptoms were. And I was actually diagnosed with gastroparesis. Because I did a stomach emptying test and I was emptying slowly. But he said, I don't think you have gastroparesis. There's no reason for you to have it. I think that you're just emptying slowly because there's a fungal overgrowth in your intestine and it's backing everything up and causing you to empty slowly. And so like he knew what the problem was right away. And then he did the test and the test confirmed what he thought. So I got misdiagnosed and I was getting treated for something I didn't even have.
Oh.
And then he figured it out. And I've been on treatment now for like a year and a half. And he said like another year and a half to 2 years and I should be back to 100%. So we'll see. I'm healthy enough at least right now to compete. So as long as I can do that, then I'm pretty happy.
I remember when you signed with One, that was a really big deal, and we were wondering if you would, dabble in MMA. But the One deal kind of just came and went, and now you're no longer with One. How come?
Yeah. So with One, I felt so bad because I just signed with them. I think like in the beginning of 2000, I think it was 20, and then COVID happened, so I wasn't able to compete. And then right when everything was starting to open up again, my stomach got so bad I couldn't compete anymore. So I was part of One, for all this time, and I was never able to compete. And then when I started to compete again, then we were in a different situation with the contracts. Like we had to renegotiate contracts, and we just never came to an agreement. And I actually felt so bad. I was like, Chantry, like when the One comes to the US, like I felt so bad about not competing. I'm like, I'll do a grappling match for free for One, just because I've been, part of the organization for 2.5 years or 2 years, whatever it was. And I wasn't able to compete. I'm like, just let me do a match for free. I feel so bad. Like,
Wow.
I feel so bad that I've been like, you guys have been promoting me and I've been doing all this stuff and I haven't been able to compete. And he's like, oh, no, we'll pay you. But so now I'm not in a contract anymore with them. But I still talk to Chantry and, I think he still wants me to compete for One. It's just, I think One is trying now to sign a lot of the athletes or all the athletes exclusive. And that's not something that I particularly want to do right now. I mean, I'll do it if they offer me enough money, but this is going to have to be a lot of money. But I'm happy to compete. There's just so many opportunities right now to be exclusive, like UFC, they have Flow, we have One, there's other people popping up. So exclusivity right now just isn't something that I particularly want. But I think they're open to, I have to do a call with Chantry. He's always traveling and busy and, doing this or that. But I'm supposed to do a call with him for the last couple of weeks, actually. And we keep missing each other. But I think I definitely want to compete for One again, or no, for One for the first time, and do my debut because it's interesting. It's a different audience. They have a big audience, especially over in Asia. You compete in a cage, so it's very, very different than competing on a mat, and it'll give me a chance to, kind of show some of my fence wrestling skills and open up other avenues for me. So I'm happy to compete for One. I love Chantry. He's always been super, super good to me. If I have a problem, I can talk to Chantry, the guy who's running the show, rather than have to deal with a guy who has to talk to his boss and who has to talk to their boss. So Chantry's been nothing but great to me. One has been nothing but great to me. That's just a matter of coming to terms on agreements and getting out there and competing.
Do you think you'll ever compete in an MMA fight?
I don't know. John has never been wrong. Our coach has never been wrong about anything.
John Danaher, right?
And
the great John Danaher.
Yeah, John Danaher. He's never been wrong. He's like told me things, and like whether it be 5 years or 3 years or 7 years later, he's always ends up being right. And John is like, absolutely do not go into MMA. He's like, you already make a ton of money doing this. You're considered the greatest of all time already. And jiu-jitsu is about to become mainstream. And once it becomes mainstream, everyone's going to get paid more, and jiu-jitsu is going to be like a real sport, and you're the forefront of that. And if you move to MMA now, that could be lost. So I don't know. Maybe if one of the other guys from the team wins an ADCC Absolute or something. I've always wanted to fight MMA, but I'm in such a good position now, and I feel like it's like kind of my job to kind of push jiu-jitsu over the hump into mainstream. So I'm not totally ruling it out, but I'm pretty comfortable just grappling right now.
Have you ever been close? Anyone really present you with a great offer and you were close to taking it?
So I was actually going to start fighting in 2019. I was actually getting ready. I was sparring. I was actually getting ready. I went to a Bellator event, and I was talking to, some guys from Bellator. I was talking to one about fighting MMA. And then in 2019, right in the beginning of the year, I fought Joao Gabriel Rocha, and I tore my LCL, and I had to have surgery on my LCL. So the second I came back from LCL surgery, the focus wasn't MMA anymore. It was I was hopping into camp for ADCC, because we had 2019 ADCC at the end of the year. So like 7 months off surgery, I had to compete in ADCC. So that was the focus. And then I won the Absolute. So now I'm looking forward to 2021 ADCC, where I have to fight Andre, which ended up being 2022. And I just kept getting like roped back into jiu-jitsu. Like, oh, there's something more I have to do in jiu-jitsu before I can leave. And now I'm at a point where, I don't have to leave. I make, more money than most UFC champions. And, there's no reason for me to get punched in the head every day and have to fight.
That is incredible that you're making more than most UFC champions. Is that Gordon Ryan exclusive, or are there a bunch of guys who make that kind of money right now?
No, that's Gordon Ryan exclusive. I think it's like I'm like the Mayweather or McGregor, I guess, of jiu-jitsu. I mean, I don't make nearly as much money as them,
sure,
but like in proportion to the rest of the guys. But my goal in the next 5 to 10 years is to be having, athletes at least with purses. No one's going to sell. Most of my money comes from instructionals. Like most of my jiu-jitsu money comes from instructional videos. So I don't think anyone's going to make as much money teaching as I do, because I think I'm a much better teacher. But I do think that in the next 5 to 10 years, I think that athletes could be making, similar money to what I'm making now just through competition purses. Like, I think that an athlete in jiu-jitsu in the next 5 to 10 years should be making over $1 million a year just competing.
Wow.
And if we can do that, then I think that we'll have something going for us.
How close are you to 7 figures an appearance, a match?
An appearance, I'm pretty far off. But in a year, I'm making over 7 figures competing for sure.
Amazing. Is this exceeding your expectations when you got into all of this, or did you believe that this would come, that you could earn this kind of money?
I mean, to be honest, I just got into jiu-jitsu because I want to start fighting MMA. My first introduction to jiu-jitsu was I was actually watching. I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and I was watching a Hoist Gracie tribute on Fox, and it was just like a rerun of all the initial UFCs. And I saw Hoist, and I was like, man, like that's what I want to do when I get older. But I thought that jiu-jitsu was the best martial art because I watched the Hoist Gracie tribute. And so I started training jiu-jitsu, and I never really had aspirations to make a living doing jiu-jitsu, because at the time in 2010, 11, 12, when I started training, there was no way you could make money in jiu-jitsu. I mean, there was no tournaments that paid. You either had to open up a school and work at the school all day, or you had to start fighting MMA. Like, people weren't even doing seminars really back then. So I just started because I wanted to fight MMA, and then I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I started making a little bit more money in jiu-jitsu. Like, I think the first year in 2016, when I first broke out onto the scene, I think I made like $100,000. And I was like, okay, like this is the first year that I'm doing this, and I can I'm making more money than my parents.
Wow.
Maybe I can kind of run. I can kind of run with this, and get it to a point where I'm actually like living like a real athlete. Like, I'm become rich doing jiu-jitsu. 5, 6 years later, here we are.
It's a remarkable story. And your brother as well competes. He's still doing it, right? He's still competing, Nikki?
Yeah. He just hurt his knee, I think, at ADCC. So I think he's just rehabbing that now. And then whenever he keeps hurting his knees. Whenever there's a big competition or something coming up, or he's training in a hard camp, he's had knee injuries for years now, and he kind of just manages them. He said tore meniscus, a couple of torn meniscus, and I think he just maybe tore his ACL. But I think he's rehabbing that now, and just trying to get back into competition shape. He's had a really unfortunate run with his knee injuries.
Saw the footage last week of you rolling around with the mountain from Game of Thrones. Actually, was the mountain rolling around with a BJJ practitioner, according to the ESPN MMA Twitter account. I don't know if you saw that one. They heard.
I saw that all my fans are roasting them.
Yes. They quickly corrected it, so props for that. But like, what is that like? We're showing the footage right now, some of it. I don't know how much do you weigh, by the way.
I'm like 225 right now, and both of them, both Martins and Thor, are both 340.
Jeez.
So
what is that like?
Well, this is actually perfect for me because now whenever I get into an argument with an idiot who's like, I'm just too strong for that shit to work on me, I can be like, well, I literally grappled the strongest person on the planet, right. And I assure you that it worked. But first of all, it was probably the dumbest and most risky career choice I've ever made, because it was the day before I was supposed to compete. And I was like, man, if I get hurt, like John is going to kill me. So like they asked me, I told them I wasn't drilling with them because I taught them a private before. I'm like, I'm not drilling with you guys. You're too big. And then the camera guy's like, you guys want to roll? So I like look around. We just finished training. It was like the last day, like the day before competition. So I like look, I'm looking for John, and I see John's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, okay, let's do a quick one. So I train with them, and Martin's actually used to wrestle. So he has some good instincts. Like he has good base. He's hard to sweep. He's super strong. He's a lot more compact than Thor. Thor's a lot bigger and longer. But I mean, just like obviously the strongest guys you're ever going to touch from every position. But believe it or not, the mechanics and the body position means a lot more than the actual overall strength. And so when you have misplaced strength, you tend to not feel as strong as you are. Like I've trained with so many guys who are so strong in the gym, but they feel like children on the mats. It's very weird how it translates. I mean, these guys obviously are just strong in the gym and strong in the mats because they're just so strong. But like even I've trained with bodybuilders before, and without the body positioning, it's hard to really feel strong. But it was a great experience because number one, I didn't get hurt, thank God, and it ended up paying off. I got a bunch of Instagram followers, so my risk to reward was correct for this one. They're just awesome guys. They're super strong. Especially Martins has this very good base, hard to deal with. Now I'm trying to convince them to like do like 6 months of training and do a jiu-jitsu match with like another strongman. Cause that'll be great for the sport. So, I'm just happy they're coming to Austin, I think, in January to train with us a little bit more. They're kind of, I think, they're kind of into it now after training with me and Big Dan. But it was a super fun experience. I always wanted to train with someone who's like just obscenely strong, and I finally got my chance to do that this past week.
By the way, does Danaher still rock the rash guard wherever he goes, like weddings? Is it still going strong?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He wears the rash guard everywhere. Even in Puerto Rico, he came to my dad's funeral in dress shoes with dress pants with a little black hat, a full leather jacket in the middle of, it wasn't summer, but it was Puerto Rico winter, so it was like 80 degrees. So he's got like a full leather trench coat, and underneath, black rash guard.
Wow. Unbelievable. Everything. I've seen him at weddings rocking it. Still the fanny pack too?
Still the fanny pack, yeah. He just he's upgraded. He's got he used to have a Jan Sport, but now I forget what he has. But I've known him for 10 years, and he's gone through one fanny pack. He had one, and then he changed it, so he had a second one.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a rash guard fanny pack, I think, and New Balances until he dies.
And by the way, I was shocked to hear about Orlando Sanchez and his passing. My condolences to you and the entire jiu-jitsu community. I saw you post something about him. Were you guys friends? Did you train with him? He's been around forever. I remember him coaching fighters for years. Couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I know. It was crazy. I wasn't very close friends with him, but I was cool with him. We talked a lot when we saw each other. We were cool we talked on Instagram. We were fans of one another, and he was like one of the first Americans to really come out and to consistently win against the Brazilians, which was like a big thing. Back in like 2012, 2015, there wasn't really many Americans doing that because there's so much influx of Brazilians to America. They were dominating the whole sport at the time. So Orlando was, one of the guys who was carrying the American flag in the sport. He won ADCC in 2015, I believe. And, he was just, and then he took silver. I think he had a heart attack actually before 2017 ADCC, and he still took silver, which I don't even know how that's possible. But yeah, I mean, he competed gi, no gi. He beat the best guys in the world pretty consistently, and very, very sad. I never trained with him. I never competed against him. But we were friendly with one another, and he's so young, and he has a whole family. So it's very, very, very sad. I woke up and I saw the news on Instagram. I was actually flying, and I landed and I made a post, and someone's like, "How could you post this? Like, Orlando just died." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Like, I just got off a flight." So then I did some research and I found out about it, and just super sad.
Yeah, horrible. So again, my condolences. And one last thing before I let you go. And again, thank you for the time. This has been great. When I say Dillon Danis, what comes to mind?
Clown. I mean, it's just
how does the jiu-jitsu community feel about Dillon Danis? Like, I know how the MMA community does, but like, you guys were kind of coming up at the same time, and I think people forget that he was somewhat well respected, and to see what's become of him, how do you guys feel about him?
Yeah, so the thing about Dillon is, first of all, Dillon is a master. Dillon is an absolute master at managing to stay relevant without actually doing anything combat related. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. And, props to him, because he doesn't, first of all, his family must have money, because he doesn't do anything to actually generate revenue. He doesn't have sponsors. If you look at his Instagram, he doesn't teach, he doesn't compete. Like, I don't know how he's not homeless. First of all, he must have like an inheritance or something. But he manages to stay relevant, and he was pretty well respected, as a brown belt. He won a lot of things at brown belt. And then, he was like a big prospect at black belt, and then he had the falling out with Marcelo. And then once he kind of got in with McGregor, that's when he started to fall apart. His popularity skyrocketed, but his career kind of fell apart from there. I actually had a super close match with him in 2017 ADCC, where it was my debut. It was his second ADCC, and he played a very tactical kind of cagey game, and he actually took me to a decision, and I ended up winning a decision. And I've been trying to have a rematch with him ever since, but he won't do it, of course. But he was pretty well respected coming up through brown belt. And then what people don't know about this is everyone thinks like he's like this badass. Well, then now I think they're kind of starting to realize. But if you actually look at the statistics, and I've been dying to actually say this on a big podcast, Dillon Danis has a record in jiu-jitsu since black belt of 18 wins and 16 losses. Like, he's not nearly as good at jiu-jitsu as people think he is. Like, everyone just references the match with me. Like, yeah, that was 5 years ago. Like, I wasn't good either. But Dillon since black belt is 18 and 16. So it's not a great record since black belt.
You think he'll ever do that rematch with you?
I mean, I've offered him 10-1 odds, because he always makes like these obscene like bet matches. Like, oh, I'll bet $1 million against that. Like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, Dillon, you can pick a number. And I did this for Felipe. Like, I gave Felipe 10-1 odds. He put up 10,000. I put up 100,000. And I told him, like, hey, we can do like a no time limit match. Like, you put up whatever number you want, and I'll put up 10 times that amount. We can put it in an escrow account, and we can grapple. And then he just like changes the subject or ignores it, and whatever the case is. But now I have between ADCC and Rogan, and doing some things, and I keep winning. Now my Instagram followers are probably almost big enough where he can actually publicly acknowledge me, because before he wouldn't acknowledge me, because he knew that if he did, I would just get a lot of his followers. But now I'm like approaching like 800,000. So I'm not too far off his count. So now I think I'm getting famous enough where he can actually acknowledge me. So maybe we can do a match eventually.
All right, we'll see about that. So what is next for you? Do you have your next match lined up?
Yeah, so I have the only thing public right now is I have a match against Felipe Pena, my fourth match against him, February 25th on Flow Grappling. That's in Orange County in the hangar, I believe it is, in California. And then I have probably between like 7 and 10 matches next year. I'm going to be competing almost once a month.
Wow.
But none of them are public yet, so I can't talk about them. But I have a lot of matches in 2023, pending my stomach, as long as my stomach is okay for it. And then 2024, I'll probably take, pretty easy up until like the middle of the year, and then just do like a few warm-up matches for ADCC. And then 2024 ADCC is going to be the big one. That I think is going to be the biggest grappling event of all time by a landslide. And whether whether it's streamed on Flow or on Amazon or UFC, wherever it ends up being streamed, I think regardless, that's going to take us to the next level, even more so than this one did.
Wow. Well, I wish you the best, man. Really enjoyed talking to you. Really appreciate you coming on. I'm sorry to hear that you're still dealing with some of those health issues, but based on your performances, you can't tell. So kudos to you on all of that. And good luck in 2023. This was great. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yep, thanks so much. Sorry, I was talking a little fast in the beginning. I was just dealing with some fucking acid in my chest.
No, I get it. I didn't notice.
I got it under control at like midway through. So
I appreciate it. All the best to you. Talk to you soon.
Yep, thanks, man. Great to meet you.
Yes, same here. There he is, Gordon Ryan. And if you've ever dealt with acid reflux, it is a bitch.